that was the first etude for this all-state, and for the instruments, the snare drum, I think what is most important, that we really have some good rhythm, so I think using a metronome always is super important. The tempo of this, marked at 112, is maybe a little fast for some of you. Don't feel so bad if you take the tempo down. Around 100, 104 is also fine. Let's talk about a few of the technical things that you're going to come across. I find most young drummers, when they see rolls, they tend to squeeze the stick and try to really buzz into the head. What I'd recommend is you think of how many strokes you're going to do for each roll. So in the first measure, the quarter note rolls, I would just think of playing 16th notes. So the measure without the roll would sound like this. And then once you get comfortable doing it that way, then use the same amount of strokes, but buzz each stroke. So just don't press too hard. You just have to squeeze your hand a little bit, and a buzz should come out. And without the buzz, it should help you stay in time and to just be more organized with how you get through the etude. And that should apply for basically all the rolls that are in this etude. On the second line, the second measure, we have these shorter rolls. That should just be a 5-stroke roll essentially, but with buzzes. So without the buzzes, it would sound, which seems a lot easier, right? So if we just keep that basic rhythm and then add the buzzes, I think you're going to make this whole etude a lot easier for yourself. The second snare drum etude for the all-state. This one is a little more challenging than the first. This we see a lot of metric modulations. So we go between 3/4, 4/4, and then we've got 9/8 and 6/8. But what's important in this is the 8th note stays the same the whole time. So when you're practicing this, I would recommend turning on a metronome, but don't put it on the quarter notes, like it says quarter note equals 126. Don't just put the quarter notes at 126. I would put the 8th notes on, so we get, it should sound like this. So these are the 8th notes, and this is what we use for the metronome. And then when we're switching between, let's say, the 3rd measure and the 4th measure, we've got 3/4 and then 9/8. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1. So we just, the 8th note stays the same, but the way you're feeling the bigger beat should change. So just count 8th notes the whole way through. I'll play those 2 measures. This is the 3rd and 4th measure with the metronome, so you can hear how that sounds, hopefully. Play a little softer just so we can hear the rhythm. Okay, so the 8th note stays the same, just the amount of 8th notes per bar changes. The difficult rhythms in this would be something like in the 2nd line, the 3rd measure, we've got this triplet, 16th note triplets, and then 16th notes, and then 8th notes. So this would be a little bit tricky for you, so just make sure the triplets are nice and even, and your 16th notes become square, and then everything fits into that big beat. So that measure, this is the 3rd measure of the 2nd line, should sound like this. So it still has a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, a nice lilt to it, but we fit all those notes in there. And that should be good. Good luck. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the xylophone etudes a little bit. So the first one, number 3, again is similar to the snare drum one, number 4, where we're going between 2 different time signatures. So we've got the 6/8 and then the 2/4. But again, the 8th note stays the same. So you want to feel the metronome doing all the 8th notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, and 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, and 2, and. So the first 4 measures should sound something like this. Wrong note there, but you get the idea with the time. Okay, and this applies for the whole piece. We're going through 6/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, and 2, and 3, and it just goes back and forth but the same small eighth note stays the same. A couple things to look at. For the most part, the sticking of this should be pretty simple, just hand to hand. So for these 16th notes in the second bar, we just probably start with your right hand, and you can just go down and up that way. I would say for the first measure, just use your left hand to play the doubled note. So don't try to alternate there, just let your right hand play the downbeats and your left hand fill in. Later, so the second line, we've got these accents. Everything should be big, so really focus on your left hand. And then really get that crescendo to go as low as you can, and then we're back into this 3 feel. Okay, so a little bit of accent on that last note, but since you're playing 2 notes at the same time, the accent's gonna pop out a little bit already, so don't overplay that accent. In the last measure of the second line, this 6/8 bar, you're gonna have to figure out a sticking to make sure we get to the end of that bar so we can start that roll with our right hand. So you can basically just alternate the whole time, and you should be able to start the roll with your right hand. And then this part, the fortissimo part in the third line, stay nice and big. So nice and big, you can roll quickly, but don't force it. So it should still be relaxed looking. Try not to use your arms. On xylophone, it's really important that we keep our hands as low as possible. It's gonna help us with accuracy and get a better sound. If we're doing this, we're digging into the instrument, which usually gets a pretty bad sound. So that's pretty much all you need to know for that first etude. All right, so now the second xylophone etude is again a bit more difficult than the first. So you're gonna have to figure out a lot of different stickings that are gonna make sense here. On this instrument, on xylophone, I tend to try to want to stay open whenever possible and not get into crossing my hands a lot. So this first measure, I'm gonna utilize doubling a little bit so I can stay open and get a better chance of hitting the right notes. So slowly, the first measure, I'd start with my left hand. So I would double from the F sharp to the E sharp, and then double on the C sharp, and then I can alternate back down to the left hand. So that one works. And then the next 2 beats, so use a double from the F sharp to the G sharp, so we can stay nice and open there instead of trying to cross over ourselves. So those 4 beats together. So you notice I don't look like this very often, so we're not gonna hit sticks and we're not gonna get crossed up. The next measure is gonna have to change that sticking a little bit. So instead of doubling from the A to the G sharp, we come to the G sharp with the left hand, but then we double from the B to the A, so it looks like this. Okay, and then the next beat, we again double from the A to the B, so we're nice and open for that part. Okay, the next little section, so this is the 3/4 measure mezzo piano. These really quick rhythms, you might be tempted to use a double stroke like you would on snare drum, but typically on this instrument, it's clearer if we alternate. So I would play 2 alternated strokes for those first 2 quick notes instead of trying to double. Okay, so that would look like this. Okay, same goes for the next measure and the measure after that. So always use an alternated stroke to try and get that rhythm out. The last measure of the next line, we've got this weird chromatic thing, so just focus on where you're starting each one of these patterns and work your way down, and then just slowly get more comfortable working out that pattern and get the speed up, and as you feel more comfortable, it should be pretty easy. The next line, this is where this etude gets a little weird. So we've got a big 2-octave gap which is going to be difficult. So this big open space, and then we got to get to this A. So I would recommend, even though it's a far leap, to get your left hand to figure out how this leap works. And then your right hand is going to go from the C sharp to the E sharp. So your left hand, we've really got to focus on this motion. So I would practice just the left hand, trying to figure out how that motion works. And then the right hand is a little bit easier. Right? So the right hand's a little bit easier, so you're going to have to focus on the left hand. So is how we should finish that. But that big leap is what you're going to have to work on. Same for the next measure. So we've got these A's now, and then this jump is all the way up here. And then we go from the G sharp to a B. Again, these are really awkward big jumps. This will be difficult. I recommend doing it slow first and getting the speed to go up a little by little. It's supposed to be quite quick as we get there. Again, don't worry about going 112. If it's a little bit too fast for you, it's okay to go a little slower and make sure you get all the right notes and have a nice feel about it. The next measure after these weird octave jumps, we've got this marking that says legato, which is really difficult to do on a xylophone. It's naturally a very articulate and staccato instrument. So just try to lean into the instrument a little bit. Don't overplay it, but use slower strokes instead of quick strokes. So nice slow strokes for that. Don't play slower. The time should stay the same, but your stroke should feel a little bit heavier. So we get more of a longer line. And then the ending, same rule as the first couple measures. Figure out where you're going to put your doubles so you end up staying open so you can execute this without getting crossed up. And then the last measure, that SP means subito piano. So from the F sharp, you go down as low as you can and really crescendo all the way to the end. Okay, good luck. Okay, so that was the timpani etude, the first timpani etude on this list. This one is marked at adagio with half note equals 60. So we should feel a big half note pulse, so 1 and 2, 3. But if you want to kind of feel just the quarter notes would be at 120. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can also think of it that way. As long as you overall have this nice big feel of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So there's 6 quarter notes per bar, so you can feel it that way. And then as you're going along, you'll see the vivace is actually, quarter note is 112. So technically it's a little bit slower for the quarter note than the adagio section, which is a little confusing. And it's almost exactly the same tempo. So don't worry so much about changing your tempo dramatically, and it shouldn't go super fast. So even though it says vivace, which means fast, don't try to, it's not supposed to be super fast. It's still that nice 112 kind of marchy tempo. On timpani, I just want to I want to make sure that when we see rolls, we're not doing this heavy thing. Timpani is a sustaining instrument, so we want the instrument to ring. So actually less strokes and nice relaxed strokes. So if we can see, I'll put this down. So for that roll in the second measure, I'm basically only playing, if I cover it up, this is about as fast as I'm playing the roll, which seems pretty easy, right? So it's not, we're not trying to roll that way. So the instrument should ring, and so if I do it nice and slow, then I just get a nice sustain. So we don't want this rumble in the jungle feeling, just nice open sound. Okay, timpani should be ringing. So the quarter notes are nice and relaxed. Roll slow. So nice and think a lot of players, especially young players, almost treat these instruments like tom-toms and start kind of doing this George of the Jungle thing. So just try to stay nice and relaxed, easy strokes, wrist only. You shouldn't be using your arms for this at all. It should be very concise, small, and relaxed. What's the other one more thing? The other thing I want to mention is the beating spot. If you're not aware, the center is a node, so that makes it really sound like tom-toms. So make sure you're not playing stuff in the center. And then if we play too close to the edge, we get this weird pingy sound. So for each drum, I would say you want to be about 2 inches away from the rim, and that's kind of where we get our best sustained sound. So every drum, that's got a tom on it, that doesn't count, should have this nice ringing sound. So this we want to stay away from, and that we want to stay away from. So just try to create a nice sound whatever you're playing. Okay, so now I'm going to briefly talk about the second timpani etude on this, marked as number 5. So this one again is in 6/8. So we should be feeling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, I'd put the metronome on and make sure we hear all those individual eighth notes to help keep you in time. Again, I will mention that on this instrument, even if rolls seem like they should be fast, we want a nice open sound. So from the beginning, we have so my roll speed is not very fast for those. It's just relaxed. If I squeeze the stick and I play that speed, I get this. Which ends up sounding like a rhythm, which we don't want. We want that sustained sound. The next measure is a simple little syncopated thing. So notice that we've got this tie marking on the F. So we've just got, so it's not, that's not right. So we have a tie. Okay. Now this second line, we see the downbeat is marked as an eighth note, and then we have eighth note rests after that. So I would really recommend that we muffle. So the bar before that, and then cut out the sound from both your G flat and the D flat, so we have an empty space. So again, it'll sound like this. So again, in the second half of that bar, after the second G flat that we play, again muffle, so it's only an eighth note. Okay, so whenever you see rests, we want to cut out the sound basically. The third measure of the second line, we see a forte piano. I would recommend on that note to play a downbeat forte and then sneak in with the roll. So don't start rolling super fast, just single note and then start your roll after you hear the sustain. Okay. Notice even when it says fortissimo, I'm not playing crazy like this. It's still nice sound. So big wrist strokes, try to stay away from using the arm. Now we've got this tricky part where we've got to do the tuning. So we've got to change the pitch of the low drum and the high drum. So what I would recommend is when you get to the audition or on drums that you already know, I would do the tuning beforehand so you can hear what it sounds like. So if we're going G flat to A flat, this is the G flat, and then we want to sing a whole step up, so do, re. So we've got this re, and then if there's a gauge here, we can match it up. This doesn't have a gauge, so I just have to remember what it feels like on the pedal from the A flat to the G flat. So I can feel what that motion takes, and when I get to it, playing the etude, it's going to happen really quick, but try to just remember that motion so you can hit those pitches accurately. That's going to be a little tough because at the same time you also have to do this high drum, which is on an F, and then we're supposed to take it to an E flat. So that's a whole step down. So both of these feet are going to happen at the same time. Since we get to the A flat first, I would tune the A flat first and then get your foot ready on the top drum and bring that down. So this is actually a really quick change. It's going to be difficult, so just practice those little motions with your feet and trying to get that pitch. I would recommend actually playing this etude on a xylophone or a marimba or a piano and getting those pitch changes in your ear, so when you put it on the drums, you know if you're right or wrong and you can adjust as you go. This is going to be a tough one, especially for that part, so best of luck.